Welcome to Weekly News Highlights.
Britain's main opposition Labour Party named Keir Starmer, a former director of public prosecutions, who opposed the country's exit from the European Union, as its leader. Starmer, who has tried to carry the socialist supporters of outgoing leader Jeremy Corbyn, while also keeping more centrist Labour members on board, beat Rebecca Long-Bailey, an ally of Corbyn, and third-place Lisa Nandy in the contest. He won with 56.2% of the votes by party members. The leadership contest, underway since Corbyn led Labour to a crushing defeat in the December general election, has been overshadowed by the COVID-19 outbreak, which all but silenced the three candidates' campaigns. One of Iran's largest shopping malls has been transformed into a center to treat patients suffering from COVID-19. Iran Mall in West Tehran, which is one of the world's largest commercial complexes, has been fitted with ventilators, health monitoring systems, and hundreds of hospital beds. Speaking at the new medical center, Iran's Deputy Health Minister Iraj Harichi dismissed U.S. proposals to help Iran fight the COVID-19 pandemic as nonsense. Iran is the worst affected country by the pandemic in the Middle East. The German Air Force transported more critically ill Italian patients from the COVID-19 stricken city of Bergamo to hospitals in Germany last week. Two advanced medical aircrafts capable of carrying patients in intensive care carried 12 patients from the Italian town and 2 people from France to Germany. The patients are currently being treated at several hospitals in Germany. Senior Medical Officer Suzanne C. said the hygienic measures taken were similar to those taken to treat intensive care patients, and that the most important thing was to keep patients stable during the flight. NATO allied forces have been supporting civilian efforts to fight COVID-19, helping out with logistics and planning, control border crossings, build field hospitals, transporting patients, and disinfecting public areas. Life is gradually getting back on track for the millions of people in Wuhan, the central Chinese city worst hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. As the outbreak continues to ebb in the city, more and more businesses are gradually reopening their doors, and the public transportation network is back to normal operations after the city in a lockdown for more than 2 months in an unprecedented bid to contain the fast-spreading virus. The Wuhan International Plaza, which was among the first places to reopen to the public, is seeing a steadier stream of customers walking through its doors. Union Hospital, one of the hospitals designated to exclusively treat COVID-19 patients in Wuhan, has now resumed normal operations and receiving patients with non-COVID-19 ailments. Wuhan International Conference and Exhibition Center, one of the first batch of public facility turned temporary hospitals on March 9th, has also now reopened to shoppers. According to Hubei authorities, the lockdown was officially lifted on April the 8th, as the COVID-19 pandemic has been significantly brought under control. Ukraine sent doctors to COVID-19 hit Italy last week to assist their Italian colleagues in containing the spread of the virus. A team of 20 doctors, including surgeons, neurosurgeons, anesthesiologists, and nurses, will be deployed to the region of Marche in central Italy for 2 weeks. The aim of the mission is also to gain field experience to bring back to Ukraine, which has registered over 1,000 cases across the country. Ukrainian Interior Minister Arsen Avakov said that Kiev plans to send more medical aid and disinfectant to Italy in the upcoming days. The Kuwaiti Lawyers Association launched a campaign for Kuwaiti nationals abroad by providing a free protective shipping service. This campaign comes to emphasize the role played by various state institutions to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Adil Fahed has more.
As part of the efforts made by the government agencies and various institutions, the Senate Volunteer Work Team at the Kuwait Lawyers Association launched a campaign entitled We Didn't Forget You.
We are offering a service with U-Target Logistics to free shipment for our colleagues and scholars outside Kuwait. We started with the United Kingdom, okay, and then 2 days after that we started with the United States, all the states. Now it's all over the world.
The weight allowed for free shipping is 2.5 kilos for students studying in America, UK, and the rest of the world, provided that the shipment includes protective materials such as the gloves, mask, and others.
It's very difficult to find it there. So in Los Angeles, it's none. You know, you can't find it anymore. Sanitizer, small piece, it's around $50. And my son said it is really not, we cannot find it.
Yesterday I've sent for them, you know, when I saw the service, I didn't believe it. It's really, I'm very proud of it, and they are all proud of it. So it's a lifesaver, as I told you. The thing is that yesterday I've sent some, you know, gloves, face masks, you know, and today now I'm sending medicine. I'm sending Ventolin spray for their chest for the 3 girls I have, 2 in UK, 1 in US.
The corona crisis demonstrated that youth cadres and state institutions work as one in challenging hardship and adversity.
Belgium's famed Tour de Flanders cycle race went viral last Sunday after being postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, with 12 cyclists pedaling it out in isolation on stationary bikes hooked up to a video game recreation of the Belgian countryside. Complete with roadside advertising and virtual spectators waving flags, the avatars of the Tour of Flanders were carried on Belgian television with live commentary, complete with camera shots of competitors in their homes cycling the shortened virtual course for rival red and yellow teams. Racing in full cycle gear from home, Belgian Greg van Avermaet won the first ever virtual Tour of Flanders, which is normally the second of 5 monument classics in the season, including races in France and Italy. The race was 32 kilometers long instead of the usual 260 and involved 12 riders instead of 175, taking an hour for a competition that usually lasts 6 hours. Greece Migration Ministry last Sunday quarantined a second migrants camp on the mainland after a 53-year-old man tested positive for COVID-19. The Afghan man was living with his family at the Malakasa camp, some 30 kilometers north of Athens. He has been transferred to a hospital in the city. A migration ministry official said his family and anyone they came into contact with will be tested, as well as personnel on the camp. Malakasa camp houses more than 1,700 people, according to the official. The camp will be quarantined for 2 weeks, and police guarding the site would be reinforced. Earlier, authorities quarantined the Ritsona migrants and refugee camp in central Greece, where 23 tested positive for COVID-19, the first camp to be hit by the virus. Australia's National Science Agency said last week it has commenced the first stage of testing potential vaccines for COVID-19 as it joins a global race to halt the COVID-19 pandemic. Preclinical testing by the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, or CISRO, comprising injecting ferrets with 2 potential vaccines, was underway at its high containment biosecurity facility near Melbourne. The organization said the first phase of testing would take around 3 months, adding that any resulting vaccine would not be available to the public before late next year. CISRO was the first research organization outside of China to successfully develop a lab-grown version of the virus to enable preclinical studies on COVID-19. Spanish Coast Guards rescued 56 migrants, including 1 minor, in the Atlantic Ocean. A Coast Guard plane informed about the positions of 2 vessels sailing to the Canary Islands. Overnight Coast Guard ship Thalia found the vessels and transferred the migrants to the rescue ship and set course to Arguinean port in Gran Canaria. 39 men, 16 women, and a 4-year-old girl disembarked after members of emergency services measured their body temperatures as a precaution due to the COVID-19 crisis. With patrols tightening access to the Mediterranean coast, migrants have opted for alternative routes in the Atlantic. Representative Jamal El-Khudri confirmed that the economic losses in Gaza amounted to $200 million during the month of March due to the continuation of the Israeli blockade and measures to confront the COVID-19 pandemic. El-Khudri also indicated that this raises the rate of unemployment and poverty in the country. More with Yumna Al-Sayed.
With 80% of the population living in poverty, Gaza also suffers from a short supply in essential medical equipment and pharmaceuticals. Ministry of Health in the Gaza Strip said that the available health components are very limited, and the assistance that has been received from various parties is not help in facing the corona pandemic, and that the materials for testing the coronavirus are scarce, and the ability to test in Gaza will be lost within a few days.
Our laboratory testing capabilities for the coronavirus are very scarce, and our medical staff cannot invest the remaining in the coming days. Also, the rapid spread of this pandemic in Egypt and the occupied territories raises concerns of the medical teams from its spread and entry to the Gaza Strip, where resources are very limited.
Gaza Health reported that the ventilators and the intensive care beds available are almost sufficient for the daily needs of patients, and urgently need to provide at least 100 ventilators and intensive care beds to confront the coronavirus.
Of course, we're still having lack of the reagents required to diagnose the patients and to get them confirmed whether they have the disease or not. And we are still appealing to the international community to extend a helping hand, especially that the corona crisis has come on top of a blockade that lasted for 13 years.
The Health Ministry called on the concerned authorities to assume their responsibilities in supporting the urgent needs to confront the coronavirus, including medicines, medical consumables, protection supplies, laboratory supplies, and spare parts for medical devices.
Kuwait's Ministry of Interior opened 2 locations in Jalib al-Sheikh area to receive expatriates who have invalid residency permits and wish to leave the country without paying fines. A ministry statement said all nationalities in the area or nearby areas could visit the 2 locations in addition to the 2 other locations in Farwaniya area. The locations in Jalib al-Sheikh are in Rufadiya al-Islamiyya Elementary School for women, while Naeem bin Mas'ud Elementary for men. April 5th was the last day of the grace period for the Filipino community, while for the Egyptian community it is between April 6th until April 10th. As for the Indian community, from April 11th to the 15th, and the Bangladeshi community from the 16th of April to the 20th, while the Sri Lankan community from April the 21st to the 25th, and all other nationalities from April 26th to the 30th. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Interior has launched fresh online services for citizens and residents amid the exceptional circumstances in the country. The new services, which are now available on the ministry's websites, encompasses transfers of residency from one passport to another for residentials, Latin name modification, family residency renewal of Article 22, and sponsors residence of Article 24. Queen Elizabeth II stated that Britain faced many challenges in the past, but the COVID-19 pandemic was something different. In a televised speech to the nation, where about 24 million TV viewers watched the Queen's broadcast on April the 5th, Queen Elizabeth said that Britain is joining other nations around the world for a common purpose and with a reliance on science in order to overcome this ordeal. The Queen added that if people were united, the country will defeat this pandemic, urging all people to abide by the government's instructions in order to stop the spread of the virus, thus minimizing the toll of victims. This was Queen Elizabeth II's 5th speech to the nation during her 68-year reign and came few hours after the Department of Health announced that the total death of the virus climbed to 4,934 and infections at 47,806 by the time of this recording. A powerful tropical cyclone made landfall on the South Pacific island nation of Vanuatu on April the 6th in a country already in a state of emergency due to concerns about COVID-19. Cyclone Harold approached Sanama Province, an island north of the capital Port Vila, with winds of up to 215 kilometers per hour at about 1 p.m. local time, as the country of 276,000 people bunkered down. There were no immediate reports of injuries in Vanuatu, and the cyclone was upgraded to Category 5, the highest category as it approached. Vanuatu has reported no cases of the new COVID-19 virus, but has nonetheless declared a state of emergency, banned most international and domestic air travel, and limited public gatherings to 5 people as it tries to prevent a local outbreak of the disease. The Kuwait Fire Service Directorate, or the KFSD, continued delivering medical supplies from public hospitals to homes of individuals in need. The KFSD has provided nearly 200 cars to distribute the supplies in cooperation with the Ministry of Health. Adil Fahed has more.
The General Fire Department launched in cooperation with the Ministry of Health the service of delivering medicines to home, with the aim of reducing human gatherings and combating the coronavirus COVID-19.
Through the cooperation right now as a manpower and logistics, the Kuwait Fire Service Directorate is providing over 150 vehicles. Throughout these vehicles, we have lieutenants and all of the officers are on their duty. We deliver all of the medicines door to door, people with chronic diseases.
The General Fire Department has made full use of the human and logistical capabilities available to the Ministry of Health to distribute medicines to patients in EZS.
Our target right now in this mission is we could cover all of the governorates and all the people in need. As we mentioned before, the objective goes back to we don't need these people with chronic illness to get out of their home. So what we're going to do, we're going to deliver all of their necessary medicines to their door.
The first stage is limited to general and specialized hospitals, yet work is underway to coordinate and prepare a plan to deliver medicines from health centers to patients with chronic disease.
Belarusian football teams Energetic BGU and Minsk clashed in Minsk, as some fan clubs in the country decided to boycott games amid the COVID-19 outbreak. Energetic BGU beat Minsk 2-0, as the Belarusian Premier League remains the only one in Europe to continue with its season. A crowd estimated to be around 250 attended the match, even as football fan club Niemen from the city of Grodno recently announced their boycott of the Belarusian Premier League and called on other clubs to do the same, as well as the Belarusian Football Federation to halt the championship.
Germany tightened curbs on social interaction, including a ban on public meetings of more than 2 people, to slow the spread of COVID-19. At a press briefing, Chancellor Angela Merkel said the expanded measures would be in place for at least the next 2 weeks. She said people will not be allowed to form groups of more than 2 in public unless they live together in the same household or the gathering is work-related. As part of a bundle of stricter rules, restaurants can only offer takeaway services, and hairdressers and beauty salons must close. Shortly after the briefing, Merkel's spokesperson said she would be going into quarantine after coming into contact with a doctor who has tested positive for COVID-19. He said she should continue to work from home. Cuban doctors and nurses arrived in Italy last Sunday to help stop the spread of COVID-19 in the region of Lombardy. The group from Cuba consists of 36 doctors, 15 nurses, and a logistic expert. Italy is one of the countries hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, with 5,476 deaths at the time of this recording. Cuba has 8.2 doctors for every 1,000 people, one of the highest rates in the world according to the World Bank. Cuban medical brigades have already helped fight the spread of COVID-19 in countries including Jamaica, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Suriname, and Grenada. The United States is cutting aid to Afghanistan by $1 billion and will cut even more unless the country's feuding political leaders can resolve their differences and form a government that can implement a peace plan with the Taliban. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced the decision after he briefly visited Kabul to try ending the dispute between Afghan President Ashraf Ghani and former Afghan Chief Executive Abdullah Abdullah, who are clashing over the results of their country's presidential election last fall. In a statement, Pompeo said Ghani and Abdullah had informed him that they were unable to agree on an inclusive government, despite what the chief U.S. diplomat described as an urgent need to have one. The World Health Organization, or the WHO, has warned that the COVID-19 pandemic is accelerating, with more than 300,000 cases now confirmed at the time of this recording. It took 67 days from the first reported case of COVID-19 to reach 100,000 cases, 11 days for the second 100,000, and just 4 days for the third. However, WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus said it was still possible to change the trajectory. Ghebreyesus urged countries to adopt rigorous testing and contact tracing strategies. He added that he would be asking leaders around the world to take on the virus more aggressively and boost production of protective equipment for healthcare workers. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged and appealed warring parties across the world to lay down their weapons in support of the bigger battle against COVID-19, the common enemy that is now threatening all of humankind. The ceasefire would allow humanitarians to reach populations that are most vulnerable to the spread of COVID-19, which first emerged in Wuhan, China last December and has now been reported in more than 180 countries. The UN chief said his special envoys will work with warring parties to make sure the ceasefire appeal leads to action. Mr. Guterres responded that he is strongly determined, underlining that the UN must be active at this moment and must fully assume its responsibilities. Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced that the UK is banning people from leaving their homes, apart from a few very limited reasons, as he imposed the most stringent restrictions seen in Britain since the end of World War II. Johnson's statement that police will break up public gatherings and fine people disobeying the rules, dramatically ramping up the country's response to the growing COVID-19 pandemic. The rules come with deaths from the virus accelerating in the country. A further 54 deaths were announced in the past 24 hours, bringing the nation's total to 335 as of the time of this recording. That's it for tonight. Join us again next week for more weekly news highlights.